Should you sell your home before you buy, or should you buy before you sell your home? Well, the advantage of selling your home before you buy another home is assurance. When you have a bona fide signed contract between a buyer and you. And once you've gotten through the contingencies, such as a home inspection and the financing, you know you have a solid buyer and a solid sale. There's no uncertainty on your part about how much money you will have to put down on another home because you know your sale price, you know what your closing costs are, you know if there were any concessions that you agreed upon to pay for the buyer's behalf. And on closing day, you have a proceeds check to put in the bank for your next home purchase. And if you're the type of person who doesn't like to take a lot of risks, this may be the better option for you. However, I want to tell you about a couple disadvantages of selling your home before you buy. Is you may have to move twice. And nobody likes to move twice. I mean, if you can't negotiate with the buyer for a later possession date so that you can close on both homes on the same day, you may have to move into a rental. And this requires you putting your stuff in storage until the date that you can move into your new home. The other possible disadvantages or disadvantage to consider is it may take longer than you anticipated to find the right home, which means you're in that rental for a longer period of time than you had hoped. The advantage of buying a home before you sell is that it's convenient. I mean, you purchase the home you want, you close on it, you take your time to move into that home, then you get your home ready to sell. You clean it once and it stays that way for the entire length of the showings. It's also convenient since you no longer live in that home and you and your pets don't have to leave for every single showing. I've had a few clients who choose this option because it was less stressful for them. One client owned their home free and clear, so they didn't need the proceeds from the sale of their home to purchase the next home. They needed time to get their home ready. Another client chose to buy before they sold because they had kids busy in all kinds of activities. They had two large dogs, and plus they both worked full time. And it just made sense to them to focus on one move at a time. The other advantage is that you can take your time to find just the right home. I mean, since your home is not yet on the market, you can take your time to find the perfect one for you. Now, you may be wondering about financing. I mean, if you were to buy a home before you sell, I mean, how do I buy a home without the sale of without the sale of my home? I mean, I need those proceeds, right? Well, as I mentioned my clients earlier, I mean, one had the money in savings to purchase their next home without the proceeds. And then the other clients had combined income supporting two mortgages. So they were able to get that financing. But for the great majority of clients, in order to qualify for the new mortgage, they need the money from the sale of their home to put down on the next home. And this is where using a subject to sale makes a lot of sense. What a subject to sale offer is a buyer writes an offer to a seller subject to the sale of the buyer's home. And there's a time frame that's agreed upon by both parties, either 30, 60, 90 days in which to sell the home. I mean, if the buyer doesn't sell the home within that time frame, then the offer is null and void and the buyer walks away from the contract. But of course, if they want to keep that time, if they want to lengthen that time frame, they can certainly do that with the seller's agreement. But if the buyer does sell their home, then it becomes a solid sale between both parties with a solid closing date, and the process of closing the sale begins. Now, subject to sale offers take a good amount of negotiation, communication, and coordination. I mean, coordination as far as negotiating everyone's closing date, because you have the seller and then you have the buyer who wrote the subject to sale offer, but now is a solid sale. And you also have the buyer who bought the home of the former subject to sale buyer. Say that 5 times quick. But you've got 3 people to consider as far as closing date and what works for everybody. But believe it or not, this scenario works wonderfully if you know the steps needed and you have the forethought of what needs to be considered to move towards a successful closing. The downfall of the subject to sale offers is the buyer might lose the home if another buyer comes in with a solid sale and no subject to sale contingency. And the other disadvantage of the subject to sale offers, they don't work in all markets. I mean, if the homes are selling quickly, sellers are not likely to accept a subject to sale offer. They'd rather accept a solid sale offer. But you have to remember that in that kind of market, your home most likely will sell quickly too. So that then you can go ahead and write a solid offer on the home that you want to purchase. Both scenarios have their advantages and disadvantages. I mean, selling your home before you buy offers you assurance. Assurance, you sold your home and you know exactly how much money you have in the bank to reinvest into your new home. The disadvantage is you may have to move twice. You put your furniture in storage and live in a rental until you find the home you want to buy. Buying your home before you sell offers convenience. You can take your time finding the home you want to buy because your home isn't on the market yet. You can buy that new home, close on that home, take your time moving into that home, and then you can turn your attention to getting your prior home market ready. And if you're a seller now or a soon to be seller, you may want to watch this next video coming up where I share 7 tips for sellers to prepare their home for the buyer's home inspection.